Hey everyone! So I meant to get this video out on Tuesday, but I didn't actually get the scene in-game until Sunday night, so it wasn't quite enough time for me to get everything done by Tuesday. So here we are on Wednesday instead, but that's okay. It's not like you guys haven't already waited an eternity for me to get the scene together, right? Now, for anyone else who is having trouble triggering the scene, I wanted to lay out some info so that hopefully you can get it as well. From what I read about how to get the scene from people's advice and comments and the like, you had to get as many of his scenes as possible. People suggested getting all of the Illithid dreams as well, and since I really wanted to hunt this scene down quickly, I went with the blanket approach and decided I would just try to get every single scene possible. In order to do this, I only recruited Astarion and Lae'zel. I recruited Lae'zel because she's required to get the stargazing scene. In fact, talking to Zorru in the Grove with Lae'zel will cause the scene to trigger if nobody else overrides it. I'm looking at you, Shadowheart. But I don't think this scene actually helped in getting the Scar scene to proc, but I was trying to go for everything, so I had to try to 100% it. Plus, Lae'zel doesn't seem to interfere with Astarion's scenes very much, and if you make sure to take it very slow, like saving and testing for scenes often, then she'll help you get through the content, which can be difficult with only 3 party members, let alone 2. But the scene that really seemed to matter in proccing the Scars dialogue during the romance scene, and then the Scars scene afterwards, was the nightmare that Astarion has. The one where after the Illithid dream, I think it's the 3rd one, that he is laying on the ground and having a nightmare. During this dialogue, he'll tell you about how Cazador carved the poem on his back. And this seems to be the talk that actually changes the dialogue that you get during the romance scene. It doesn't always show for me when I have a full party, but with the light party, it triggered easily. If you didn't get the dialogue after Astarion's nightmare, you only get the option to ask him about the interesting scars on his back, and he'll tell you that Cazador put them there. But if you've had the talk about his nightmare previously, you'll get this dialogue instead where you can say, "Is that the poem that Cazador carved on your back?" You'll also get an additional dialogue option where you can ask, "You've never seen it?" or "Aren't you curious what it says?" Although, even if you don't romance him, you can still get the scene afterwards. It's just a guarantee that you're on the right track if you see this dialogue during the romance scene. And I did confirm that you can get the scene without romancing him, and the dialogue option seems to be exactly the same. So now that we've gone over all of that, let's dive into the scene itself. You basically come across a shirtless Astarion feeling around on his back, trying to determine what the scar says. For my first pass through the dialogue, I went with a kind of sassy but still loving approach. Let's take a look.
I, F, or is it an E? Is it even a letter? What damn language is this? There you are. I admit I got curious. I've been tracing the scars on my back with my fingers, trying to read them by touch. But I can't. They may as well be written in Rashimi. This isn't your problem, you know. Fine.
You can't read the text carved into his flesh, but you recognize the script. Any warlock would. It's infernal, the language of the hells.
And? What does it say? What in the hells? What did he do to me? I have absolutely no idea. But it's no poem. 2 centuries carrying this. And I can finally see it. I'm sure. But what will it say? Thank you, by the way. This is... well, it's It's something. Will we? How sweet.
All of these choices were enticing, but ultimately I had to give him crap about not caring what the scar says. I love how he plays it off, like he's not surprised at all, and even acts like he was looking for you with a nervous little laugh. He admits he got curious, and honestly, this part of the scene feels really natural. I'm loving his expression here too. It's just nervous and playful. I really like it. Being nice Tav for the moment, I offered to take a look for him, and it's interesting to see how hesitant he is to accept help from someone else, telling me, it's not my problem. I couldn't tell at this point if he didn't want me to look or if he just didn't want to trouble me. That became clear later, but for now I'm just like, shut up and turn around. I love being sassy Tav too much. He acquiesces really easily here and doesn't look upset at all, so I'm figuring it was just a matter of not wanting to burden Tav. Now, initially my husband told me, and he was mistaken, that a warlock could read the spell, but they can only tell that it's an infernal. Astarion is pressing to know what it says, and since you can't read it, the best you can do is draw it out for him. As he turns around, his face is awash with surprise, like, what the heck is that crap, and why is it on my back? Neither of you has any idea what it means, though, but it's obvious it's not just a simple poem, as Astarion was originally led to believe. There's a lot of choices here, and I'll go into most of them in a bit, but ultimately, he seems pretty worried about what it might say, like, to be carrying that around all this time and have no idea what it even is, it would be really alarming, creepy almost, you know? And at the end, he is really appreciative of your assistance. He's not really sure how to say thank you, which I find adorable. He's just like, this is, well, it's something. Yes, honey, it is something. You're welcome. And I love telling him we'll figure it out, I promise, because he seems so surprised by how considerate you're being, as if he can't comprehend the idea of someone just wanting to help him with no ulterior motives. This hurts my heart a little, but at least he has Tav now to look out for him. I've got to say too, I know I'm always talking about expressions, and that's probably because I look at faces a lot. I am a portrait artist after all, so I just focus on this sort of thing by default. But whoever is animating Astarion is a genius. He communicates so much through his face and the different expressions he makes. Even when he is not saying how he's actually feeling, it's written all over his face, and that takes some talent to pull off. So kudos to the animator on this. It's really well done. So what else is there that's worth mentioning? Well, if you play it even more sassy, the early part of the scene is quite different. Let's watch.
What are you doing? Well, if you must know, I've been trying to make out the scars on my back. I can't see them, so I've been trying to feel my way about. They may as well be written in Rashimi. That had better be a joke. I can't read it with a mirror, and it seems I can't read it with my hands either. So, I was wondering if maybe, perhaps, you might be able to, Can you read what's on my damn back? Please.
I love how he gets all upset and flustered, like you're a peeping Tom or something, and Tav is just like, me? What are you doing standing around half naked? And he's like, well, if you must know. I love how fussy he is here. It's just funny to me. I had to rib him by asking if he'd like me to get a mirror, and he continues his indignant act, saying it better be a joke. Of course it is. But he lets his facade down a bit, and you can see some discouragement pour through his face as he realized he simply cannot do this alone. But then the option to say nothing appeared, and I just had to pick it. And I'm glad I did, because him asking for help is so freaking cute. He is so awkward and fumbling as he just tries to get the words out. Hey Tav, can you help me out? That's all it takes. But he gets completely frustrated and just bursts out with, tell me what's on my damned back. I was legit laughing when I saw this because it was so silly, and he did throw the please in at the end, so it wasn't entirely rude either. I had to pick the cleric from Gondline at least once and loved his futzy little ha-ha.
Ha-ha, tell me what it says.
If Astarion were real, I might have too much fun picking on him because he's such an easy mark. I swear, sometimes I haven't progressed past elementary school, you know, where you used to pick on someone when you liked them. I'm just a brat. I can't help it. But going back to other choices from the beginning of the dialogue, if you pick "Sorry, I'll leave you alone," he has a really nice response here.
Wait, I'm sorry. You caught me by surprise, that's all.
He basically realizes he's being a little rude and apologizes, telling you that he was just caught off guard. This line feels really natural and nice as well. I like that he's being less fussy about everything too. You can also pick the alternate option here saying, "Alright, if you don't want answers."
No, wait. Yeah.
And he follows after you, saying, "No, wait," and turns around. Although he looks incredibly vulnerable and sad here, and I felt kind of bad afterwards. Like, maybe Sassy Tav took it a little too far. Sorry, baby. As for the alternate dialogue at the end of the scene, there isn't a huge amount of variation, but mostly more stuff that confirms that the poem on his back is likely not a poem. He mentions being surprised about Cazador having this thing on his back, but also says it gives him an advantage because Cazador could never have known that he'd be kidnapped. He also says that he never saw any devils in the crypt, or actually saw Cazador writing in Infernal, so he really has no clue about what it could be. I love the idea of this scene opening up a sort of personal quest for him to find out more about what the symbol on his back is. I mean, it's already there under his quest, the Pale Elf, the last question being, Cazador did this, but why? There will most definitely be people along the way in the game that we might ask about what the symbol means and like what it is. I also have to wonder how much of this can be completely bypassed if you miss certain scenes, or can you eventually catch up later, culminating in the same conclusion? Like, if you don't get the nightmare scene, you'll miss the scars scene. But if you find out in the romance scene about his scars, even without hearing about it previously, will looking into the symbol eventually open up? I ask only because I kind of like the idea of missing something like this. Even though it was frustrating that I couldn't get it on my Tiefling game, I love the idea of playing a game through and then finding out that you missed something big like this. It's cool and adds to the replay value because you can go back and play again to get the different outcome. Anyway, I'm rambling again. So overall, I liked this scene a lot. It wasn't as flirty as I usually like, but it definitely had a good touch of his vulnerable side and also his opening up to you. I think it shows that Astarion can, if pursued down this path of caring for him and just treating him well, be a very valuable ally. I think he would likely be the type to die for you the way things have been going. Imagine being a slave for 200 years, being tortured in the worst ways possible, and then all of a sudden someone shows up who actually gives a crap about you? It would be a bewildering thing. Like, does this exist? Is it real? It would be hard to open up at first, but I think once that dam broke, there would be no holding back the flood of pent-up emotions. I really like the idea of it too. It's an awesome dynamic the two of you can share, and I want to see more. Of course, I want to hear what you guys think about it as well. I'm also really excited for the Panel from Hell stream going live on Thursday, or tomorrow technically, and I'm so excited that we finally get a new area to explore. Grimforge, I believe, is supposed to be a town across the lake in the Underdark. So freaking cool. I mean, after all this time of playing the same map, we finally get something new. I might even be inspired to make my first dwarf. Maybe. I'm still not really wild about the whole dwarf aesthetic. On another note, this week has been super crazy for me with workload. I have so much to do, too many ideas and responsibilities, and not enough time to complete them all. It's frustrating. I wish I didn't have to sleep, honestly. But I've been really wanting to focus on writing this week, and it's been causing me to fall behind on making YouTube content. But I've got Chapter 3 of Legionnaires up on Patreon this week, and Chapter 2 for Dawnsinger will be out Thursday. I'm still trying to find the time to get started on artwork for my characters from Legionnaires, but it might be too optimistic given everything else I need to work on. And speaking of Patreon, thanks to the awesome people who support my channel by pledging. If you would like to help offset the absolutely dismal revenue I make from ads, head on over to my Patreon page. The link is in the info below, and I'll flash the link on the screen for you as well. As a Patreon, you'll get a lot of exclusive content like access to my books, character art, and works in progress, plus video updates that I do every Monday with insight on my plans for the week, and an invite to the Discord. So if you'd like to support the continued creation of my content, pledging is a really good way to do that. And with that said, thanks again for watching. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.